Welcome back, CGC family, to another episode of the Battle Files. Just want to have a conversation with you guys today about the future of the Battlefield franchise. As you all know, I do cover all games, but I am primarily a Battlefield fan channel. I love the franchise, I love the series, and one would be remiss to say that it hasn't fallen on hard times as of late. With the last two releases really not living up to, let's just say, typical fan expectations. Now, as a fan of the series, I'm willing, or more than willing, to be patient with DICE. But this next game, if indeed there is a next game anytime soon, really needs to course correct a lot of the, let's just say, mistakes, the missteps, the haphazard tendencies that DICE has seemed to develop over the last few years when it comes to this franchise. They've made some critical errors. They've made errors that have, I think, cost them fan base numbers, and on some levels may have done irreputable damage to the series as far as getting people to come back into it. You even see some YouTubers that I followed because they were Battlefield guys. They mostly play Call of Duty now because Call of Duty may not be Battlefield, but I mean Battlefield ain't even Battlefield anymore, right? At least not as we knew it for the last few years. Probably starting with Bad Company, which is likely most console players in particular's first Battlefield game, or Bad Company 2, which I think is really where popularity-wise, at least between consoles and PC, that the franchise really took off. I mean, it was already a big deal on PC, but I think Bad Company 2 put it over with everybody. That's when console and PC players were like, this series is legit. This series is something that I want to follow. It wasn't like that for me. I've always been a fan of the combined arms first-person shooter, which is essentially what the genre is. First-person shooter, but if we're going to subgenre it, that's what it would be, combined arms. Land, sea, and air, as well as, boots on the ground, soldiers, simulation war game. That being said, this rather long video or chat that I want to have with you guys is about the past, present, and future of this series. Things that were a certain way, things that are a certain way, and things that I hope will be a certain way, and things that I don't hope will be a certain way. But you have to assume that things may go left when you want them to go right. The most important thing about some of the topics we'll cover is that I will be looking at older games, going back to the original Combined Arms DICE game briefly, because as the old saying goes, to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from, or something like that. I'm not really great with quoting people. I think it's more like those who are aware of their past, can dictate how their future, whatever. Like I said, I'm not great at quotes. But I got a notepad here with a couple of things I want to cover because I have a tendency to ramble, especially when it comes to things that I'm passionate about. And I really love this series. Like it and Halo are probably Halo and maybe Soldier of Fortune 2, believe it or not, are probably the games that really got me into first-person shooters. I used to be horrible at them, and now I'm just very average, which is a lot better than horrible, right? But I love this franchise. I love the gameplay loop, the playground, the what's the word I'm looking for? just the fact that you literally can get in this game and do anything and actually affect the match outcome, especially if you and your squad are working together on a very potent level. Not guaranteed to get that, but when you do, I mean, man, you're talking about a symmetry that's just grand. And honestly, I think that's one of the main things that the series has lost. Now, for a little bit more context of why this video is going to exist, recently I've seen videos from other YouTubers talking about where the franchise can go. As any of you who are playing Battlefield 2042 may or may not be aware, we are coming up on what will be technically, it's supposed to be the last season of the game, though DICE has promised that they will do something past season 4. I think it's called season 5. I'm not sure, but apparently they do have future plans for the games, which at best tells me maybe we have another year of content coming forward. And with the game making a huge turnaround, as far as, basically just making sense, right? Like, the maps that they've improved, for the most part, have gotten better. They're still kind of a mess, but they're far cry from what they used to be. The new maps they've added have improved the gameplay loop of this game, and we know that we're getting one more operator with season 4. I do not believe, outside of I think there's 2 maps left for them to redo, and we're looking at one of them now, and God, does this one need a redo. This one needs a fresh coat of paint, everything, because it's just, yeah. But we're going to get into some stuff, guys. Hold on tight. If you got to watch this in sections or in small doses, I totally understand. But I felt with other content creators making videos about this game and or this franchise rather, and where it could be going, I might as well take my crack at it and see how it goes. Maybe DICE will listen, maybe not, but at least it'll be out there, right? First game in the franchise. Now this is codenamed Eagle. Technically, it's not a part of the franchise, but it is DICE's first romp into combined arms first-person shooters, and it actually has a lot of similarities to Battlefield 1. It's kind of a steampunk game. But, a brief history on that. Like I said, we're going to cover the past. Let's keep moving. Now, I think the first thing I would like to point out is that starting back with Battlefield 1942, there were obviously several different armies because, Battlefield 1942 covered World War II. And because there were several different armies, when they first created the series, they went through the trouble of having different vehicles for each army. And if there's one thing that, a lot of Battlefield veterans would probably critique 2042 on, is the fact that it is very spare, or at least it was very spare on guns, maps, and vehicles. We very rarely do anything in the water on this game. There's not. I don't think. Are there any boats on 2042? I don't think so. I think the only boats that are on 2042 are in the portal maps. Why is that? If I remember correctly, if 2042 was a part of the Battlefield 4 story, there were plenty of boats in Battlefield 4. Hell, they lived on a boat, or, they basically had people living on the boat with them, refugees. As a matter of fact, I think 2042, they're still living on a boat, right? It's like The Last Ship that shown on TNT. The small knowledge I have about it. So it's like, why wouldn't you have more oceanic battles in 2042? Strange. But I think the first thing I want to point out, and I went off on a rant about that, sorry about that, is the fact that it doesn't make sense to me for the U.S. Army and the Chinese army, or I think it's the Russian army, forgive me, to have the exact same vehicles. They should have different stuff. That would make playing either side more interesting. That's what made playing the old game interesting. If you ended up being on one side or the other, you had access to different weapons, different vehicles, things of that nature. Going back in the past with, let's see, we don't have to really talk about Battlefield 2 because it kind of had the same thing. Let's talk about Battlefield Vietnam, which actually is before 2 anyway. Asymmetric gameplay. Where are the modes that give us more asymmetric gameplay? Where are the modes where, maybe one army is ambushed and the other one isn't, and they're coming with full force, and you don't have access to, like maybe air vehicles, stuff like that, but they have access to air and sea. You have access to heavy standing ornaments and, turrets and air, surface to air missiles and tanks. Why not do something like that again? Right? Like the biggest thing that vexes me about the Battlefield developers, DICE, and a lot of these developers is you do this really cool stuff in, one game or several games for a very long time, and then all of a sudden you abandon it. I'm going to say something that maybe will be controversial, or not necessarily controversial, but it will draw negative reactions from people. I honestly don't like the idea of not paying for content. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but even on like Call of Duty, the quality of the content you've been getting for free, quote unquote, has been remarkably terrible when compared to the stuff we used to pay for. Now, I realize that part of the reason we stopped paying for stuff is because it started getting bad, but I mean, it hasn't gotten better. Now, I understand the idea of not wanting to separate the player base because some people are going to buy it and most people probably are not. But something's got to change. And I think the first thing I want to bring up is maybe the idea of bringing back paid content. Not necessarily maps. I think all the maps should be free, right? But like, perhaps, I don't know, access to certain vehicles or certain sets of vehicles, things like that. Now, the only thing that's sketchy about that, obviously, is that you're talking about gameplay advantages. Does this guy own a helicopter or plane that everybody else in the server doesn't own, and he dominates because of that, or she dominates because of that? But that's maybe something I shouldn't touch, and I'm pretty sure somebody's calling me an idiot for even bringing it up right now. But I really do think that the paid content seemed to be better. And I guess the problem is where do you not cross the line? Because while I do like the fact that most shooters, in particular Battlefield, obviously has a fuller servers later on in the game's lifespan because everybody has the same content. To this point, dude, let's just admit it, it's not working, right? Like, we're getting one map every season. And don't even get me started on Battlefield 5, which was cut short. Like, it seems like, okay, the stuff went free, and now all of a sudden, we're going to not only give you less, but when we feel like quitting, we're just going to quit. Don't like it. Now, I'm not going to admit or act like I know everything and I have all the answers, but I clearly they have to start charging for something, or they have to get the right attitude about it. And I am hopeful that with Vince Zappella being in charge of the series now, this is the guy who originally worked on Medal of Honor and then got tired of working on that, or something happened with that, probably with EA. Went to Activision, created Call of Duty, got pissed off with Activision, came back to EA, made Titanfall. The rest is history, so on and so forth. Apex Legends, Jedi Survivor. I think coming out in a month or so. The guy's got a great track record of pumping out hits, and if not commercial hits, then games that are very well beloved. My concerns with him being in charge of the series are minimal, mostly concerning the idea that maybe the franchise loses its identity because he's in charge. But from what he said, he has no plans on changing what Battlefield is or turning Battlefield into something else like a Call of Duty. So those concerns aside, I think what should be happening is that we should probably not only be getting better, let's say, continuity with the story of Battlefield. He seems like he's a really good story guy. But I also think that we are going to get better 8v8, maybe 6v6 maps in Battlefield. I wouldn't be surprised if Battlefield actually ends up having a solid TDM mode next iteration with 3-lane maps, the whole 9. I mean, this is this guy's bread and butter. That's what he knows. Combined Arms isn't really a thing, even though he did make Titanfall, which again is a very beloved franchise. But I want to talk about the mode that makes Battlefield Battlefield. I want to talk about good old Conquest. Like I said, there were a couple of YouTube content creators who are big Battlefield guys who had a couple of ideas. And again, I want to throw my hat in a circle, if you will, or my name in a hat, however you want to put it, as far as, putting ideas out there. And I think for me, like I said, we're going to looking back at the past, we need to bring back destruction. As corny or as market savvy, if you will, or buzzworthy. I think that's the terminology I was looking for. Buzzworthy as the idea of Levolution moments were. I think they were damn good moments or damn good parts of the game. I also didn't mind behemoths. Battlefield 1 behemoths were very cool. There was nothing wrong with having something that provided people with a comeback, a comeback functionality where if a team is losing by so many points or their situation is become dire, they get some kind of super vehicle or, a weather change or something like that happens that pushes things in their favor. Like, stuff like that is cool. And there's 128, 64 to 128 people running around on these maps. It's not like we're playing it competitive. And if you want to play it competitive, again, Vince Zampella's in charge of it now. So 6v6, 8v8, and boom, we can bring back the what was the mode from Battlefield 1? I think it was like 4v4 or something like that. It was on the Battlefield 1 test servers. If you can remember what the name of it was in the comments, please put it in there. But like, bring that back. Make that your competitive mode. But in the context of Conquest, I think we need Levolutions back. We need Destruction back, which means, hey, if you got to kill off 128 players, hey, goodbye. We don't need it right now. If you can't do it right now, you can't do it right now. Battlefield without Destruction after Battlefield Bad Company 2, or Bad Company 1 rather, introduced it, is just like, it's not it. And as beautiful as some of the maps in 2042 are, at least to an extent, like that Destruction is like, it's jarring how much it's missed in many instances. Like, even this map, this is the newest map from season 3. Very cool looking map, right? But the fact that there's barely any destruction on the outskirts, like this area right here, is, it's a little annoying. They purposely didn't put a lot here that can be destroyed. Like, now the main cube areas of this map, you can chip like the walls off and the upper walls. You can go into the ceiling and do some, you can infiltrate the structures that way, and that's cool. But we need destruction. Like, the PS5, Series X, PCs on average are powerful enough nowadays that we should be knocking down several buildings in a map, not just blowing a hole in the wall so we got a new entrance. That's Xbox 360 and PS3 stuff. And quite frankly, Xbox 360 and PS3 were knocking down entire cities on some maps. I believe Siege of Shanghai was on a 360 PS3 version of Battlefield 3 or 4 rather. But we need destruction back. I would not mind Behemoths coming back. We gotta put battle pickups in the game. I think I mentioned that in one of my previous videos. We need battle pickups in the game. But I think in order to make Conquest truly more interesting, you not only need to bring some of that stuff back, and if you bring some of that stuff back, just put it on certain maps. You don't have to have Behemoths and destruction and battle pickups and whatever, because there's several other things, and this is a series, so I will be adding more videos about this. But you don't have to put all of that stuff, right, in one map. You can have one map that features this. You can have another map that kind of plays out like a regular Battlefield maps, has some destruction, but it has a behemoth that both teams have access to. I didn't hate Battlefield 5's idea of kill streaks, where the captain of a squad could call in an airstrike or maybe vehicles and things of that nature to help his team based on how many points his team earned, getting kills, capturing flags, helping each other as far as providing health, ammo, revives, all that kind of stuff. Didn't hate that at all. But honestly, I have to agree with the level cap. And I've been sitting here trying not to walk away from the microphone or pause the video to go find his name because I wrote it down somewhere. But I'm in agreement with him that Conquest, which is the marquee mode of this franchise, needs a shakeup. And I thought about this long and hard. I wanted to make this video a couple of months ago, but I wanted to put some real thought into it. I'm not a game designer, but I've played a lot of games. And something hit me. There was a game I played back in the early 2000s at the arcade that had a pretty unique mode in it that I think, if elements of this mode were mixed into Battlefield, it would not only make Battlefield interesting, but it might actually be a much better way of introducing free content, skins, things like that. The implementation, I'll leave to somebody smarter. But how it could work, I have a few suggestions. I'm going to pull a screen up for you here in just a second. We're kind of going to switch games. It won't be a full video, but I do have a picture that basically I can feed you information off of. Now, again, keep this in mind. I am not saying this is what DICE should do, but again, I think that if Call of Duty's main selling point, Call of Duty's main selling point is probably BR now, right? But if Battlefield's main selling point has not been BR, it certainly hasn't been that I guess, attempt at a Tarkov style mode that they tried with 2042, then Conquest is still it. That and Rush. And we're gonna make a video about Rush sometime soon. But let's focus on Conquest. I promise this is almost over with, but let me get these out real quick. Let me get these bars off. So, this is a screen from the arcade version of Soul Calibur 2. I want to say it was Soul Calibur 2. Yeah. So, Soul Calibur 2 had what I believe was called a Conquest mode. Funny enough, I think it was called Conquest. It could have been called something else. But I believe it was called Conquest mode. Anyway, how it worked was you would sign in as a user on the arcade machine. This is one of those games that kept your username and your records and stuff like that. And you would choose an army. The 4 armies you see on the screen: Elaine, Galahad, Tristram, or Lionel. And the leaders are players who have the most wins while playing this mode at your local arcade. Obviously, the scoreboards for an online first-person shooter would work a lot different, but again, implementation is not what I'm talking about. I'm just throwing out an idea here. What would be wrong, since these guys are no pets, right? Next game, make them pets, make them patriots of somebody's army, somebody's country. And not only do you separate, so we fixed several problems here, right? Not only do you separate the vehicles that are available to players based on which army they choose, but you keep progress of everybody's, you keep track of everybody's progress. So how many wins is China getting? How many wins is America getting? Or the United Americas, call it that. How many wins is Asia or Russia and China? How many wins is Japan getting? How many wins is Europe getting? And all of these armies will fight against each other because no one's really cool with each other in that universe. At least I would think. You're no pats, right? Or at least you were. Based on who wins, let's say every month, and I think PlanetSide 1 and 2 did this as well. Well, not what I'm about to say, but they definitely split the player bases be like between 3 or 4 armies. But based on who wins every month, you get like exclusive skins for guns, characters, vehicles, things of that nature. And each army has strengths. So maybe Japan's technology tree is better. So they'll have more advanced guns, quicker rates of fire, lower damage. Maybe the Americas will have better land and air vehicles than most armies. Maybe the Chinese army would have better something like a way to recover tickets. Gameplay stuff. Make it interesting is what I'm saying. You could have your standard Conquest mode that works the way it works with, the things that we talked about earlier added back in. I would like to see that. But then you put this mode in and you say, well, commanders in the Chinese army and the Russian army, after so many points, can boost the ticket count by 50 or 25. Something fair. Something that the other team can wipe out quick, but something they can call at the last second. European armies can call in behemoths after so many points. Make it interesting. Because right now, because you've taken away the team play aspects and people really don't communicate the way they should be, and you've taken out QOL things as quality of life, people who don't know, things that I think they just put in better indicators for medics to know that somebody needs to be picked up. Because you've taken things out like that, you need to make the game about teams again. You need to make it interesting to be on these teams. this was a very simple thing that made you go to your arcade. And even if another player wasn't there, you would log in and play for your army. One, so to see if you could get on the top of that leaderboard, but two, so that your army could take up a bigger percentage. And I don't think you really ever got anything for it. There weren't skins in this game, but it was just something cool to do. Now, in the case of Battlefield, much more could happen. I'm thinking, again, skins, XP bonuses. This is how you could flood in free content. You can still give out free maps and stuff like that. But when you separate the armies, right, it makes it easier for us to want to buy skins for the Chinese tanks, because only the Chinese tanks have like red and gold patterns with like dragons and stuff like that on it. The American tanks have like eagles and it's red, blue, and white. The camo patterns for the soldiers are different in this. And you should literally, like, if you see past like the statistics and things here, there's a world map. You put the world map on there. What war do you want to join right now? Which would be a server that's picked where, a war's happening on that part of the map. But there's some interesting things they could do. I'm excited for the future of this game. But my hope is that someone sees this video and at least shoots it their way, because, man, the potential for Battlefield, if they did something like this, would be crazy. And I don't know why anybody hasn't, I guess you could say, stolen it or borrowed this idea before, because it really would be cool. And again, Conquest, I have to agree with like a lot of the guys have been talking lately. It's getting stale. It is literally degraded down to this whole, let's just run around from point A to point B. You're like dogs chasing our tails, right? Like every once in a while there's a conflict, but I've literally played matches in 2042 where, I barely fight anybody. It's just running from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E, and sometimes F, depending on how big the map is. But that's it. No one's really doing Battlefield stuff. People are just running around in circles. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Bring back points of interest on the map. Bring back points that give a certain team vehicles. If you're going to have an airport on the map, you should only be able to spawn a particular kind of plane on that airfield so long as you control it. Bring back points that give you AC-130s or an airstrike like in 1943. 1942, I think, had one too. Bring that stuff back. Vince, if you're listening, please. I don't know what you know about video games, but give some of this stuff a try. Anyway, guys, that's the video for now. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. And, yeah. See you in a little while. All right. Bye.